I really want to acknowledge all of you who are joining in. During these challenging times, I'm sure everybody's been busy with their families, with those people around. Uh, but I'm so glad that you could make time for something as important as what we're going to discuss today. Something that is really the need of the hour. Other than the medical help, I think this is mental health is the next big challenge that we're facing as an outcome of what is going on. So thank you. I acknowledge each one of you to actually take out time and be with us today. Uh, uh, so I think we should begin. Yeah, in the
Yes.
interest of time. So first of all, as I said, thank you so much for taking our time. My name is Harbinder, and though I'm a personal brand strategist, but today I am here in the capacity as in the role of being the founder of Health FAQ, and totally committed to get wellness answers that people can trust, which means getting you the answers from trusted, qualified sources. And I want to thank Soumya Sharma, who's been I feel blessed to have her as a friend, and to have her take out time is something which I really appreciate, Soumya. So let for the people who don't
Thank
know
you.
Soumya yet, so Soumya is an emotional wellness coach who's also spending a lot of her time and her knowledge to offer therapy and training to people who need the most. And other than working with the individuals, she's also been in demand with the corporates for her to come over and spend a lot of time with the leadership teams so that they can manage their teams and their personal lives better than what they're doing right now. And why I felt Soumya was just the right person to come and spend time with us today was because one, she has herself just recovered from COVID. So she knows the perspective of a patient, and she is right now playing a role of a caregiver to her family, which is recovering from COVID. So she also understands the need of a caregiver. So I felt it was most contextual to have a trained uh, value provider who is also in having the first hand experience to come and talk of these issues. So, and also her mission aligns with what we are trying to do today. Her mission is that it's actually her burning desire to normalize emotional, mental well being for everyone around her. So, which is such a brilliant thing to do. And today is when we know the importance of what she does. So, thank you so much, Soumya, for taking out time and,
Thank you,
trying
Arvind.
to
Thank
add
you.
a lot of value to everyone else in the society. So without wasting too much
So,
of
Harvinder,
yes,
I just wanted to something that you said that was so interesting, which is that it's the next big challenge, mental health. Actually, mental health has been a challenge for a while. Now it's in our face, and if now we don't start talking about it, I think we are again doing what we have done with COVID. We're missing
absolutely,
the bus at many
absolutely,
point in time. So this
absolutely,
is the time really to start looking at it,
absolutely.
and
And
it's not a scary space.
no, it is not a scary space, but you know what? This is the first time. I mean, I've known you for a while, and I understand the importance of mental health. But what has happened is we are in a scenario right now, and I very strongly feel about it because it is touching everyone's life. Somebody who's getting sick, somebody who's taking care. Look at the helplessness of the doctors. I mean, they are in a position to help patients, but they don't have the resources, so they are helpless to offer what is their noble cause. Look at the children. Look at the education providers. It has touched everybody's life. You know what?
Hmm.
And with that, I want to bring in my first. I want to start our discussion, and I want to ask you one thing. Today's situation, there is a lot of panic and anxiety, which is leading to a stress. Stress, some people are aware, and some people are subconsciously under stress, and they don't know why they are reacting in a way that they are doing. What is it that people can do right now keeping in view the situation around?
Okay, so let's demystify the word stress because I think we use it so commonly. I'm stressed about this, I'm stressed about that. But what we don't understand is what stress is and why, especially now, it's not working for us. So our body goes through stress, or stress has been a normal part of our lives from the time of primitive man. Okay, and the part of our brain that responds to stress has been the same part of the brain since then that we're carrying forward. In fact, even before, through our mammalian times, so before we even became humans. Now, this part of the brain is specifically targeted at, and the entire brain system is primarily working at keeping us safe and looking after our survival needs. Anything it perceives as a threat, it will activate what is the stress response to keep the body safe. The body prepares for survival. So what happens in that? All the blood flow moves towards the essential organ. And so that we can either fight or we can run away from that situation which is perceived as a threat. The flip of that, the breathing gets, so what are some symptoms when our, what is called the sympathetic nervous system gets activated? Our breathing gets shallow and faster. Our heart rate increases. We start to sweat, and yet our hands and feet turn cold sometimes. Our blood is, diverted from the major organ and it's taken towards our heart and towards the extremities, so that where we have to fight. The flip also in this is that this is when our digestive system shuts down. This is also when our endocrine system shuts down. Our cognitive thinking gets affected. We are only focusing on survival. Now, in primitive times, maybe the threat was a lion that was coming to fight with you or was coming to sort of potentially kill you. But the moment the lion is gone, the threat is over. And then the parasympathetic nervous system would get activated and the body would focus on rest and recovery. So that primitive man actually would, after the threat is done, would sleep for a while, would rest for a while, would actually get okay, quote unquote. Today's time, stress is a part of our life, and it is usually coming from all directions. So something as simple as boss said something, to me being ill, to family member not being well, to what will happen to my children, all of it produces the same kind of stress. And the same response is getting activated again and again and again. Now, the flip is here the stresses are not getting over because we are also thinking about it in the future. And so the stress response keeps firing. For the longest time, this has been firing, and now we have had something called COVID. And 2020, COVID came out of literally nowhere. And we weren't prepared. The doctors didn't know what to do. That was a situation that was also very, very uncertain for all of us. And the WhatsApp forwards and the random videos are clearly not helping. That this happened in this country and this happened in this country, right? And so what happened as a result of it? The stress became higher. The anxiety became higher. Was still not dealt with. We went into survival mode. Some of us got COVID, recovered, and we were like, okay, you know what? We lived through this, and then we got easy. And we said, okay, we're not going to think about this. Let's go to Goa instead, and let's drink it away, right? And that obviously has not eased out what already was stress under the surface. And now everything comes piling onto us. Mm-hmm. What is happening now? With the sheer number of cases, and it's not a wave, it's a tsunami at present, right? With the sheer number of cases where the systems are overwhelmed, where potentially we were not prepared, where earlier one person in the family would probably get COVID and get okay, now it is everybody getting it and every other person is getting it. And it is scary, especially when you're reading what's happening on WhatsApp. So what is happening? The stress response is clearly firing. What is the one thing we need in COVID? It's to keep our oxygen levels okay. It is to actually breathe at a certain level. But the moment I am panicking, my physiological response is not allowing me to breathe, and we're getting more and more critical, quote unquote. In fact, there are several doctor friends of mine who have told me that a lot of cases who are coming to them have come more because of panic than actually COVID. And they've gotten sicker, one, because of this. Second, because of the constant thinking that's been on. So it does not mean you don't take responsible measures. You do. You please get in touch with the doctor. You please stay in touch with the doctor. Do everything under medical advice. And please do not self-medicate. There is no WhatsApp forward which is going to tell you the right medication to take. Please do not self-medicate. Having said that, please don't rush to the hospital just because it's feeling like, oh my God, what will happen?
Yeah. So that brings me to a question that, Soumya, what is the first thing you suggest that a person, when he gets his positive report, other than the medical attention, what is the first thing a person needs to do to prepare himself or herself for the situation? Because,
so besides,
वो पहले ही रिपोर्ट आती है, कीपिंग इन माइंड ऑल द न्यूज अराउंड, ऐसा लगता है कि बस अब तो 10 दिन रह गए मेरी जिंदगी.
एग्जैक्टली. तो रिपोर्ट आती है तो उसके साथ लोगों को लगता है कि डेथ सेंटेंस आ गया है. तो फर्स्ट थिंग, प्लीज एक्सेप्ट इट्स अ लेबल. अगर इस पे कोविड नहीं लिखा होता, डेंगू लिखा होता, तो विल दैट हैव बीन ओके? नो, right? It's still a medical label. It's still something that's showing that there is something in your body that requires attention and medical attention. The first step, accept that you have COVID and take the necessary preventive measures of self-isolation and all the others, right? Get others tested. All of that is important. Consult the doctor. Get your medications in place. Please do that. Every disease, or as we call it, dis-ease, has, and I like to use the Hindi word maryada for it. There is a way that it has to be dealt with. There is a process for it, right? COVID also is like that. It does need to be dealt with in a certain way. It has a certain timeline. You accept that, Abhi, for example, for the next 17 days, I need to look after myself. I need to be in isolation. I need to look after myself. I need my medication. All of this, when you accept that, इनसे से हर भगवान क्या हो गया मेरे साथ, and अब तो मैं मर ही जाऊंगा, and सब कुछ हो जाएगा, and दुनिया खत्म हो जाएगी, all of that. Instead of that, just accept that this is what it is, and it comes with the package that it does. Now you act responsibly, which means look at your vitals, take care of your, diet and your medical, your nutritional needs. Consult with a nutritionist if you feel the need to, and do not hide your symptoms from somebody. Now let's look at what can you do at a mental level, okay, or a mental and an emotional level. First thing, don't talk about it to the people who you think will be contributors to you. Telling the entire world and everybody in the world saying, hi, aapke saath kya ho gaya, is definitely not going to help. We also need to understand our brain works in a goal-seeking mechanism. So what I feed to it, even if it is what I don't want, is what it goes and seeks. So if I am just giving myself and feeding myself more and more negative news, then that is exactly what I would focus on, right? So talk to the people and confide in the people who are contributors to you, who will keep your spirits up, and tell them to please keep checking in with you every couple of days, so that they can come in and, there will be moments that you will feel low. And let me tell you, 11 years of being in this work and probably 16 years of being in the field of psychology, I also had low moments. We're humans, we're supposed to, right? Emotions are natural. It does not mean you don't feel anything. No. I also, and my fever went on for about 11 days. It did take me a full month to recover. You accept that it is what it is. And then in accepting it, now you say, okay, now how can I make it easy for myself? So there is pain and there is suffering. I understand I have a physical illness or a pain that I am going through. Now, do I need to suffer with it? That is a choice. The suffering is always a choice. So one is connect with the people who are good friends who will, bolster your spirit, and tell them to keep checking in on you. Second, rest as much as you can because your body requires that. Third, get off WhatsApp and the news channels and the newspapers, and instead very consciously focus on reading or watching material that is either humorous or positive and keeps your spirits up. Finally, after the basic fever and everything is gone, there is also going to be a lot of weakness, and you might feel, I have been in control of my body and my life and everything so well. And what is happening right now that I'm not even able to do that? If I was to take an example from my recovery, I had the worst case of brain fog there could be. where I found it difficult to form complete sentences. So this conversation that we're having could not have happened 2 weeks ago. And so I was judging myself that will my work stop now? Will I never be able to work with anybody? All the future scenarios are also going on in my head. And then every day, every step that I was taking, including forming full sentences, I stopped and tried to acknowledge that yes, okay, I did this. Great, I'm able to do this. Okay, and my body is requiring rest right now. I'm also acknowledging that and I'll take that rest. So every step towards recovery, you acknowledge. First to this is take care of the self-talk. Are you down with COVID or are you recovering from COVID? There is a major difference between the two. And how you speak to yourself at this point in time defines how your body responds to it. So being down with COVID and then going, hi, देखो हमारे साथ क्या हो गया, दुनिया ऐसी है, government ऐसी है, and all blah, 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 is not going to help you recover any faster. However, when I actually start talking to my body and I say, oh, my cells, you know what, I have a strong immune system that already knows what it needs to do to heal. Every day and in every way, I am healing and I'm recovering. And every step is helping me become stronger. I am actually telling my body what to do. And even when you talk to people, you say, I'm recovering from COVID. I'm on day 2. Even if you're on day 2, I'm on day 2 of COVID and I am on recovery. Hi, Bhavya. So with all of that, what are you doing? You're actually telling your mind what to do. The other main and something that really helped me was stay grounded. Now, it's a very weird thing for people who do not know what I'm talking about. There are things that we do in a normal day, which are normal for us. For example, for me, it's a cup of coffee, right? And something that as simple as this is a part of my normal. And when everything seems overwhelming, it's very important to have some things that feel normal to you that will help your nervous system stay calm and grounded. And it will help them also feel safe. Stick to at least one such routine. Do one such activity that can help you to stay grounded like that. And for me, there were 2 things that I did. One was having a cup of coffee. The second was, and have only as much as you can, and if your doctor advises against it, please don't. The second being, I talked to, there are 3 very, very close friends of mine, and I talked to either of them on some day or the other. And I made sure that even if that conversation is 5 minutes, even if it's, hey, babe, that's sort of a check-in, it's fine. But that is required for you to just stay grounded. Now, this was mine. Right, and I caught up on an entire series that I had forgotten about. So yes, so so simpler things to do, and if you can, and this really shifted something for me, and it's something that I have seen people around me also when they do something shift for them, is to connect with nature. It's again a way of grounding. Now, I do not mean go out for a walk. Please stay at home. What I mean by that is if you have a terrace or a balcony, there's at least a plant there, okay? Connect with that plant. Put your hands in that soil. The plant is not going to get COVID. The soil is not going to get that either, right? And if you so wanted, you can wear gloves. I would say do it bare hands. And just put your hands there. Maybe just soften and, moisten the soil a bit. I remember I was on day 11 of my recovery, and my parents were in the hospital, by the way. So I was recovering at home all by myself. And it was an overwhelming day for me. And I was sitting outside on my terrace. I did not have the energy to carry a chair to my terrace. So I took to, that platform that you have in the bathroom that you sit on, that stool. I carried that plastic stool and I sat on the terrace. For 20 minutes, I was not even aware of what was around. I just sat. I had my phone, I put it aside, and I just sat. And then 20 minutes later, it struck me that the big tree in front of me is here. And I could feel the fresh air. It was in the evening. I could hear the chirping of the birds. And while all of this was happening around me, so much was the overwhelm in my mind that I could not hear it at that time. Mm-hmm. And the moment I started to pay attention to it, I just relaxed. And I cried at least for 10 minutes. But then everything started to settle and it just settled, where I knew that I'm safe. And just started to talk to that tree. Just started to sort of put my hands on the ground. Small things like this can ground you and are critical for your recovery. So I hope these are some things that you can do.
Awesome.
And if a lot of people call you and every day if you have a big social circle and everybody wants to know how you are, please stop responding. Please tell them I'll respond when I'm ready, or have one broadcast message that is sent to everybody, and don't take calls if you don't want to. It's good to have boundaries, especially when you're recovering.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead. As in the long answer.
No, it's actually very beautiful to see that, how small things like connecting with nature can actually calm you down and take your attention away from your illness or the situation that you're going through.
Absolutely.
But you know what? Sometimes the patient or the patient's mental well-being is an outcome of what he's seeing around. And when I'm talking about seeing around, I'm talking about the caregivers. So किसी को कुछ हुआ तो उसके घर वाले ऐसा पैनिक क्रिएट कर देते हैं, और उनका पैनिक देख के पेशेंट डर जाता है कि यार मेरे को पता नहीं क्या हो गया और मेरे साथ आगे क्या होने वाला है. So what is it that should be the responsibility of the caregiver? Because I understand most caregivers are in a role traditionally as a spouse, as a parent, mother, father, son, daughter, brother, sister. But and their emotions are understood when they are into that particular role. But suddenly when you start becoming a caregiver, because no professional care or help is available right now, so you have to take on that role. And how do you maintain that calm? I know that people say that don't panic. It's easier said than done. But what, as a professional, would you recommend that these caregivers need to do?
So 2 points to it. One, caregiver. The word itself tells us what is required. Give care. So in that care, when you're giving panic or worry, that's clearly not helping. Traditionally, I have especially heard my parents say it, and a lot of adults around me, I love you, that's why I worry about you. But worry is almost like having a beautifully wrapped gift that has crap inside it. Because it's obviously not positive, healthy vibes or energies you're sending anybody's way, right? So your worry about your whoever is your family member who's not well is not going to help them heal faster. In fact, if I just got spiritual for just a tiny second, it's going to actually increase the time they will take to recover. Because your panic, first of all, let's look at it logically. First of all, your panic is going to trigger their panic and their stress responses. And their stress responses are not going to help in the process of recovery. And the post-recovery care will be longer. That's one. The second, your worry is going to make you more impatient with them. And also make you feel more overwhelmed, which is not what you want, especially when there is all the other responsibilities for you. And at this point in time, especially in the times of COVID, it's not the case that, rather there are a lot of cases where the other person is also getting sick. So do you not need to take care of yourself? You do. And for somebody who's already panicked with their own diagnosis, whatever that is, your panic is also going to add a responsibility, a sense of responsibility in their head, which could be guilt, which could be, oh my God, what have I done to them? Which could be, oh, I have to get better faster, or I can't tell them what I'm genuinely feeling, authentically feeling. So if my need as a patient, I don't express to you because I am feeling conscious about how you're going to react, or I feel guilty about putting so much pressure on you, it's not going to help my recovery, and you as a caregiver, the whole process is falling flat, right? So that's one. So first of all, as a caregiver, again, what I said for somebody who gets the label or who gets the diagnosis, accept the diagnosis. It is what it is. You've got it. अभी 5 जगह टेस्ट करा के चेंज नहीं हो जाने वाला है. If it is, it is, right? Now what do we do? Anytime there is panic, first question is do not panic. Because it's like saying do not think about a melting mango ice cream. The first moment I say it, all of you probably thought about it, right? Because our brain is designed to stimulate what I am telling it to do. and it does not understand the word no. So don't panic. The brain is thinking, oh, I need to panic. And there is the panic response. And there is the panic response, right? So that's not going to work. The second is, okay, so there is the label. Now, what are the action steps? Immediately get into action. Because if there's action, then you feel in control that, okay, I know what to do here. Now, does that mean I need to touch base with a doctor? Do I need to take a home care sort of a package with some sort of a hospital? Do I need to touch base with a nutritionist? Do I have everything? Do I need to, I need to isolate that person. I need to get masks and gloves and, as Keshav very rightly said, take a deep breath and do pranic, sure. And also then, get the disposable. So what are these actions? What are these basic actions that I need to take care of that? Third is take time for yourself too. That person who's in is going to sleep. It's required for them. You don't have, it's not your responsibility to entertain them all the time, right? So when they are sleeping, as we also say for mothers, when your baby is sleeping, you sleep. Again, when the person you're caring for is sleeping, you also rest. Your physical rest will help your system calm down too. That cannot be compromised no matter what. The third is, again, you establish your boundaries. So if the patient is feeling a lot of panic, or, so you also say, okay, this much I can do, and then maybe I need to call out to someone and say, hey, can you take over for me for this while, and I can do something. Sometimes both as somebody going through, whether it's COVID or any other diagnosis, and caregivers, sometimes they forget to take care of a very basic needs, like take a shower, brush your teeth, wear different clothes, or sleep, or eat proper nutritious food. This is as required for them as it is for you. So please do that. Third, like I was also saying for the people who are going through COVID, acknowledge every step in the recovery. It's not an on and off switch. कि आज fever है, कल fever नहीं है, right? And there are several other symptoms. So you must acknowledge that there is a process to it, and we, allow the patient to have that. Yeah, primarily that.
Got it. But Soumya, when we talk about we have spoken about somebody who has COVID, and we've also spoken about caregivers. But दोनों के case में, whether we like it or not, कभी ना कभी, whether we, at some moment, the thought of what if the eventuality happens, because you've seen so many people around you who have, resulted in unforeseen eventuality. You start thinking of that, and that creates a fear. What do you do at that point in time when the fear is setting in, so that you don't go dive into it?
First thing, breathe. The most important thing, and the most, ironically, in COVID, that's the thing that's affected, right? But breathe, especially the caregiver, breathe. Second, look at, okay, if you have been in touch with the doctor, if you have been taking care of the basics, if you have been watching, say, the oxygen levels and the temperatures and the medication and everything, chances are that eventuality will not happen if you have been keeping an eye. Now, there will be cases where that is. What do? Get into action. Does that mean you need to talk to a doctor? Take a second opinion. Do you need to touch base with your resources and say, hey, can you help me with a bed or oxygen cylinder or whatever? So take action, right? Because that is not the time when you freeze in fear. Also, at this point in time, usually happens that actually there is a lot of fear, but there's also a lot of adrenaline rush that's happening. It's later that the fear, when the action is done, whatever it is, that is when the adrenaline comes down and people feel the impact of what happened. And that is when the crashing happens and the anxiety for the future happens. So prepare in advance for what is. At the same time, please do not hoard. Know your resources and be responsible. It does not mean you have to get an oxygen cylinder and a concentrator and a doctor and a hospital and everything in your house. No, you don't. 85 to 90% people heal and get well within home isolation, provided you are in touch with a medical doctor who works in this. That is very important. Why are complications happening? Because a lot of these steps also get, it's also knowledge that for what it is, right? And answered it. Sorry, I was just getting a call and I just answered that. So doing that. The other aspect of it you said was, what do you do when you have fear, right? Um, Taking action is the resolution to fear. And you also talked about one more thing, which is the mindset. Now, it till the time and God forbid any eventuality. Now, this again, I speak from personal experience and otherwise. Your mindset in the beginning also plays a huge role in the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So at that time, the moment you've got a label, the moment you've got the diagnosis, both you, if you're a patient or you're a caregiver, I talked about self-talk. The other thing along with that is, affirmation and, using positive framed sentences about that person and their recovery. For example, as a patient, if I said, every day and in every way, I'm getting better and better. My body enjoys perfect health. Or if you don't have COVID, to prevent it, we are all healthy and perfectly fit, and things like that. Have a positive focus. Second, look around you and really look at all the good things that are also happening. Okay, calms the nervous system down, right? Um, Prayer, but prayer not from desperation. The prayer of thank you so much for actually allowing for healing this person, for keeping this person safe and healthy. Do this preventively and not in that last moment of panic. Those are some things to do for sure. If I could take a personal example here, Harvinder, I have a belief about my life. It is that I think I have a fan in Keshav. Thank you so much, Keshav. So I have a belief in life that everything in life is easy, and I am taken care of. These are two very core beliefs. I'm taken care of. I'm cared for by the universe. The universe always has my back. Is one of my core beliefs. And the second is everything in life flows with ease, which means difficult times also come, but they flow with ease, and fun times also come and they flow with ease. Now, when COVID happened, my parents are 70 and 68. That is, they have comorbidities, some strong ones. They did have to be hospitalized. Having said that, when I look back, and even at that time, I'm so grateful for the fact that everything happened with ease, and everything literally flowed with ease. From the diagnosis to their treatment, to my treatment, to our recovery, everything flowed with ease. Your belief system makes a difference. Does that mean at that time you don't have a panic emotion? You do. Does that mean everything is a smiley face and heart in the eyes? No, of course not. Of course not. You're human, right? We're all human. We're bound to have those emotions. But your core beliefs and your affirmations will shift and pivot where you go. So do keep your focus on that.
Awesome. I think that's very, very useful. But Soumya, so we've had caregivers, COVID patients. Then there is another set of people who are affected by the lockdown. Their work has stopped. Their businesses have come to a halt. Now, many of us are blessed, and but while I say that, there are a lot of people out there who are dependent on their business being open every day. Right?
Absolutely.
So when they see that everything has come to an halt, their income has come to an halt, but their expenses or their commitments are still there, that is causing a worry and stress. What do you suggest to these people? I mean, and they don't even know, every weekend it is like, pata nahi, Monday ko lockdown khulta hai ya extend ho jayega. So that is creating a lot of worry in their minds.
So, Harvinder, truth be told, I have been one of those people too. And my business was very much affected, especially during the first set of lockdowns in the last year. Having said that, what they are really stressed about is the uncertainty and the impact that it has on their everyday life. Will I have the money to sort of pay my bills? Will I be able to do this? Will I not? The answer to all of it is, I don't know. And it's the answer that they also have. I don't know. At this point in time, I don't know. So we need to accept the I don't know. The problem is we think of the I don't know and then we go into the thinking of the worst case scenarios. Then what will happen and then what will happen and then what will happen. The fact of the matter is COVID is here. COVID is impacting a lot of industries and the impact is such that businesses are affected. And unfortunately or fortunately, it is across many, many industries. So if I know that to be true, I understand this particular wave sort of felt like it came out of nowhere. Though it did, but it did feel like it came out of nowhere. Having said that, if business is affected, and it may be affected for a while, even after the quote-unquote lockdown gets over, many businesses will not go back to normal or the way they were immediately because they would still be dependent on, say, a customer walking in or, people buying what they used to. So if that's the case, then now the question also is, how do I deal with this then? I need the money. I don't have the money. What is the solution? Can I, in the meanwhile, look at other job opportunities that will at least allow a flow of income? Can I, in the meanwhile, do I have savings I can tap into for now? Trusting that, okay, it is going to be here for at least a month or 2 months. Is there another source of income? Is there, in the meanwhile, are there any temp jobs that I can take that can help me? Or if nothing else, in my social circle, if it has come to that level, is there somebody I can borrow money from? The fact is, what is happening is we're getting stuck in the loop of paisa nahi hai, paisa, I don't know when the businesses are going to be normal, and we're going around in that loop. And it's the I don't know and the uncertainty that's causing the fear. Well, it is an I don't know. The I don't know is the biggest part of our life. We don't have an answer for it. Even for that matter, if you ask a politician or a government that, hey, when the lockdown gets over tomorrow, they'll say, I don't know. Because right now, the situation is still developing. So if that is happening, then you are taking it step by step. And it is one of those moments where you can only see the next step and not beyond that. So one, please spend judiciously. This is not the time to buy a Jaguar if you don't have a job. Second, if you can, look at alternative ways of investment and also income. Third, look at how can you, if it is possible, can you take any temporary roles that can actually add to your income flow. Fourth, tap into your savings and investment. This is the emergency fund that is potentially saved for. Right? So, there you go.
So, Soumya, one thing that emerges out of it is that typically whenever this kind of a situation happens, I mean, at least when it has happened to me, I mean, right now we see COVID as one of the things, but business challenges come in everybody's life, and COVID is not the only reason why they come. But what happens is such kind of situations put you in a spot where you can do either of the two things. I mean, either of the two ways in which you respond. One is you freeze. There's a complete inaction. You are lying down on your bed, you don't know what to do, and there's complete inaction. And the other way is to respond to the situation, and that the business, even when it opens, is not going to be the same as what it was. So you need to realign your business, you need to figure out how to do it differently, or how to create a business continuity, or to plan better for the future. So how does person move from inaction to action? Is there something that a person can do, or what do you suggest?
Okay, so what we talked about, the freezing, right? The freezing itself is a stress response. So when I was talking about the fight or the flight, the first response actually in that is freeze. All of us first freeze. So if you've seen an animal that's running away, say from a lion, if you've seen a deer, when spotted, the first thing they do is freeze, because the movement is what is seen and therefore is threatening, that the predator will see me. So that freezing that we're talking about in a human terms, that something quote unquote traumatic or threatening has happened and we have frozen and we're lying down in bed, that is still a part of the stress, also a part of the grief. So there is a slight depression that you might feel, and we do need to grieve what is happening, that how did that happen to me, and all of that. Now, I would say do not ignore that emotion either. Feel it fully. Because when you felt it, now you're not shutting down from it either. When you felt it fully, it's done, its control over you is gone, and now you get into, okay, abhi ho gaya, now how do I move forward? Now what are the steps I can take to actually deal with this? If we do that, that is where we move from um, no response to actually response, or reaction to response in many cases, and then take the steps forward. Now, your question being, how do we move from there? Depending on where you are at present. Response is most required, and then it also requires us to have our cognitive abilities about, which means I need to be relaxed before I can think consciously for it. Maybe I need to write it all down and first pour out all my emotions, maybe even in something as simple as a journal. Or maybe I do need to touch base with a therapist or a coach and actually deal with it, and then come up with an action plan as to how to do it. My suggestion, please do not jump into something immediately saying, you know what, abhi ye paisa nahi hai, chalo isko nikal, this is what I do, or one of those schemes that say, 5 din mein paisa double. Not going to happen, right? Have your mind and your wits about, and take steps. You also talked about one thing, which was about business planning. Now, the business planning ideally should happen before there is a troublesome time.
Mm-hmm.
So most of the times, especially if you're business owners, or even as individuals who may be potentially working in a corporate professional, we do not have investments in place. We do not have our planning in place. If nothing else, let's learn this as a lesson to actually get started on these. And it's actually a lesson that even I have learned in the last year. So
well, yeah. So what I understand is, first is acknowledge that this is an outcome of a depression or an anxiety, and then you tell yourself that I need to take an action. Is that correct?
So acknowledge the emotion for what it is, and allow yourself to feel the emotion. If it feels overwhelming, take help. Once you've dealt with the emotion, then look at the action steps.
Awesome. Great. I've had somebody call me, and in fact, you also told me that somebody reached out to you, and they have this specific question, that they say that you become helpless. You see so much of negativity around. There are so much of WhatsApp messages coming. People are seeking help. They're looking for ambulances. They're looking for hospitalization. Somebody is looking for oxygen. And you want to help, but you are unable to, right? You really wish that you would go out and go and help people, but you are yourself not able to arrange for an oxygen. So there's a complete feeling of helplessness. And this is actually creating a lot of worry in the minds of people, right? And in fact, there's a sense of feeling guilty about it, right? So what do you suggest to such people? Or what is it you suggest that someone can do to overcome this guilt?
So we have decided health looks like a certain format only. If I can help somebody get oxygen, or get, in this scenario, or get them a hospital bed, or potentially get them an oxygen concentrator, or whatever, ambulance, whatever. If I do that, then only then I'm helping them. But if I can't, then I'm quote unquote helpless, or I'm not helping. Is that really true? Does everybody require only that help? Suppose all 1 billion of us try to do only that, then? So help is required in various ways. There are people who are stopping and verifying the needs that are going on. So first understand, if you cannot help in one particular way that you think everybody is asking for help, look around and find the people who are actually helping in that way and are right resources for them. That's also help. But listen, I can't help you, but I know this resource. It's a credible resource. Please touch base with them. That's help. Second, look at how can you help. If I call a friend who is maybe recovering and is feeling very worried, anxious, or panicking or whatever, and I listen to that person, and in that conversation I help that person just feel a little hopeful or calm that person down, have I helped him? Potentially, yes. If I have if my neighbor is unwell and I send a meal for them, have I helped them? Potentially, yes. Or If nothing else, send somebody a message and saying, I'm praying for you. And actually do it. Would that be help? Yes. If nothing else, stay in your house and do not get infected. That is a huge help for the healthcare system, right? And that is also help. So we are all helping in our own ways if we are willing to do that. The question is, one, are you willing to help? Second, what is your unique way in which you can help? Help is not the same way for everyone. And it's important to understand that. And yet, every format of that help is as important as the other. If you can't do anything, make a list. And you know, these WhatsApp messages, yes, can be overwhelming. At present, I have several people known and close to me who are seeking serious medical help. It is quote unquote worrying, right? If nothing else, and this is something I do, and it's something that anybody can do, and that is make a list of all those people and just pray over that. Light a candle for all of those people. You can do that. You could. It doesn't matter what is your religious or spiritual belief. If nothing else, you can say, hey, let's say Harbinder and Samya, okay? Harbinder and Samya, you're whole and healed and healthy. It doesn't require anything to say that. Say that 21 times for each person. You're helping, right? Ask their families, what do they need? How can I be a support to you in this time is a very good question to ask. They probably don't always need an oxygen cylinder, but they potentially need a laugh. They potentially need someone to say, hey, I've got your back, just call me anytime. I'm here if you just want to vent. And then if they're calling to vent, that's not the time to say, you know, ye bhi kharab hai, world is going to hell, and we're all going to die. That is not the time to tell the apocalyptic story, right? so that is the time to actually hold them up.
Right. So, Soumya, my next question comes to children. I mean, I have so many moms who've kind of requested me to ask this question. If you look at the kids, they've not attended school for a year and a half now. They haven't gone to a school. Most of the kids, because of the fear, unless some parents have been really, fearless and taken children out for a vacation, most kids have not stepped out of their own confines. They haven't been attending physical birthday parties that excite them. They haven't been going out and playing in the parks. What do you suggest to the parents of such kids how they should respond to the crisis? Because kids have now taken over to the screens. You know, पहले हम स्क्रीन से मना करते थे, तो अब तो स्कूल भी स्क्रीन पे बोलता है उनको आने के लिए. So, you know, and also, how do they keep in touch with their friends? They're not meeting their friends. They're not talking to their friends. And the only way they can keep in touch is through a screen.
Well, they're not meeting their friends, but they can talk to their friends on the phone or a video call. Of course, that's also screen, but yeah, they can. So think about children, and children is a broad age. So everything from 2 years to 18, quote unquote, I mean, if you're seeing them in school, is children, yeah? And everyone is dealing with it in their own way. But one thing that's true for children, especially younger ones, is that they are very adaptable. And that is very true for a child. In fact, you'll potentially, if you now got in touch with several children, they'll say, you know what, I'm missing school, I'm missing hanging out with my friends, but classes, sitting in the classroom, especially during exams, if you would have asked them, they would have said, I don't want to go back to school, I want to take the online exam. Why? Because it was starting to work for them. So, one is, it's been a year and a half, let's accept this is our normal. And it is, at least given what situation is right now, is going to be for the next at least 3, 4, 5 months. Right? If it is, let us as adults, as parent figures, accept and adapt to it now. It's high time. It's not so much the children who need to adapt, it's us who need to adapt. Second, yes, children are on their screens. Yes, classes are happening online. Let's assume classes happen till 2 o'clock in the afternoon, right? After that, staying on the screen is still a choice. So then are we not able to provide any entertainment system which is off screen? Because and yes, it is possible because parents are now working from home, so they are potentially busy with office till 6:30, 7, 8 in the evening, and are busy. But are there any pockets in time that we can make where we as parental figures also put our screens away and show it as an example and say, hey, I'm not going to use mine, you're not going to use yours, and this is our family time. And what can we do as a family? Or what can we do as an extended family? And once this gets over again, extended families will meet, and some close friends, neighbors will meet again. Maybe with masks and gloves on, but we'll meet, right? So what can we do there? The third being, what are some things in the house that you can get the child involved in, which will be of interest to them and potentially also involve some physical movement and activity so that they are not just stuck on their seats and their screens. So could they help out in the housework, for example? Is this a good time for children to learn how to set a table or how to water the plants or actually how to maybe even plant a plant, The other being, there are a lot of online fitness classes, etc. happening, and children do need to burn the energy and burn and channelize that energy, burn calories and channelize the energy. Now, if that is the case, there are also classes that are made for children. It involves a screen, but it involves an activity that involves groups, that involves people, and it's not just this. There are, so my nephew is 8, right? He's a part of a storytelling class. He's a part of a yoga class that happens online. He's also part of a theater group that is happening online. So, see, let's look at it this way. All the things that the children were involved with in a non-COVID time, all those professionals are also shifted their work online. And they're doing it. So how can we make that fun for them? Okay, come back to the house. This is a good time to order the Monopoly and all the other games that you can play together. This is also a time to think of family rituals. This is also a time to really involve the children. And you know what? This might actually tell you if you like children or not. Unfortunately, I've also had that feedback from some people. Some clients have come back and said, you know what? I just realized I didn't like children. Okay, sure. So you stuck with them, but yeah, it is what it is.
Right. Children are also facing another, emotional crisis, as if I could loosely use this term. When somebody close to them is suffering from COVID, and they see a lot of panic at home, they see a lot of pressure that their parents are going through, they see the uncertainty in the minds of their parents, and this stresses them. So they are fearful of what is going to happen or what is happening, because nobody is telling them the reality.
Absolutely.
So
yes.
How do you handle kids during these times when they?
I think it's a very good question, Harbinder. It's a very important one too. And it again comes back to the adults, not so much the children. Okay. One, as we started the conversation, we talked about how as adults we need to self-manage our emotions, our thought process, our mental space. I don't call it mental health per se. I call it mental space. Okay. When we do that, children are looking at us for cues on how to react. Right. So if I am panicking all the time and I am stressed out, the child knows, even if the child does not have words, even if the child is as young as 6 months old or 1 year old, the child may not have words, but is very observant and has already understood things are not okay and is going to be responding in that way. If your child is of an age where you can talk to them, anything from 2 years and onwards, please talk to them in words that they understand. That, say for example, mama is ill or papa is ill. Their body has a boo-boo. It needs time to heal. Papa is feeling scared. So, papa might react in a way which is not okay. Papa might get angry. It's only because he's scared. Papa still loves you. You are safe. And please do it at a distance because the child obviously needs distance from you in case you have COVID. Um, but please talk to your children. Please also tell them what's happening in simple terms. Not just tell them there's COVID out there, please be aware. No, of course not. But also the fact that there is a difficult time there. And again, easy terms that kids understand it, not adult terms. Second, lead by example. That is the most critical thing. Children understand everything, including, by the way, death, if you explain it to them in ways they can process it. So when you do that, they will understand. And also tell them at this time, this is what mama needs or papa needs. This is how you can help me. They will help. They will actually be very willing to help, run around and help you in the way they can. You might have come out of something, or you might not have gotten COVID or anything. You're sitting at home, but you're listening to the news of your friends or whoever, right? And you're probably still feeling a bit stressed about it. If that's the case, still talk to them about it. Tell them about it, and also tell them why is it important when you as a parent tell them wear a mask or wear gloves, don't go out, whatever. They'll understand that. Now, you don't have to tell them these many people died and these many people infected. Kids will not understand that. They're not supposed to. They're children. But the biggest of concepts can be understood by a child if you explain it to them in terms they understand. And do it in a way that makes them feel safe, makes them feel loved, not throw your stress at them. That's not going to help in any way.
Got it. Also, kids have become very irritable. While we are talking of...
Who hasn't?
No, but one side is that they're troubled, they're the emotional side. The other side is they're also creating a havoc in the parents' lives. So imagine, and this has come from a lady, so I can understand, I can relate to it. Maybe it is more in a woman's life that they're facing right now. Many of them are working from home, and they also have their spouses working from home. And then you have kids who are on chutti, or they've got used to not knowing what to do. So they're irritable, they're not studying. So आप उनको पैम्पर कर लेते हो, फिर उनको आप प्यार से मनाते हो, फिर आप गुस्सा हो जाते हो, and sometimes you even maybe just give them a slap. But the challenge is people. I think the question came in was that I'm at a loss of not knowing what to do. मेरे को क्या करना चाहिए?
Okay, as beautiful as that question is, the children are irritable. Why? Is it because you want them to behave in a way they've always been behaving before COVID? That's not going to happen. Is it because they're feeling irritable of staying at home? Well, for a while more, they do have to, right? So maybe now this requires creative solutions. That if you ask a child to come up with, or maybe, and I know that parents are overwhelmed right now, there's no doubt about it. Having said that, if you took out half an hour or 1 hour of that time, it will save you a lot of hours of irritability later. Is have a chat with them and notice, ask them, I notice you're irritable these days. You're reacting faster than you used to. What's going on? Tell me. And listen to the child. Maybe there's a lot in their hearts and minds that they do need to speak out, and maybe you've not been hearing them. And they do need to be, they do need to be heard too. Second, once you've heard them, then ask them what is the solution. Now, together come up with a solution. Together come up with a strategy that will work for them and you. Also tell them as you're listening to them what has been the impact of their irritability and you're not understanding the cause for it on you. Have an authentic conversation. These are people. Therefore are able to process emotions, are also able to understand. But for that to happen, communication needs to happen. And communication will happen with two people listening. One speaking, other listening, other speaking, first listening. That needs to happen. And make it a solution-focused conversation.
Got it.
When you do that, so again, my blaming the other and saying, you are always irritable and you don't work, not going to help, right? Because the other is going to say, you don't have time for me and you're only doing your work and you're looking after Papa, whatever, or you didn't let me watch TV. That is an unending loop. But the moment you can come and say, hey, I want to understand. I'm already relaxed. I now want to talk to you.
Got it. Got it. Uh, Another thing which is playing a havoc in people's life is the WhatsApp
Mm-hmm.
messages, the forwards. Many of them
Mm-hmm.
are also dated messages which are now being found and being forwarded. So people are
Yes.
trusting something which is
For
not even.
example, Manjunath is still donating plasma from 2020.
No, I mean, उससे पहले के भी बहुत सारे messages आ रहे हैं.
Uh-huh.
So the question is that people are dabbling with so much of negative. For that matter, if you open the newspaper every day, or you switch on your TV
Mm-hmm.
and start watching the news, you are like getting a feeling that the world is ending. You know.
Mm-hmm.
So, what do you do uh, about handling this negativity of trying to balance your life and maintaining a sanity? Because आपके ऊपर डर तो वैसे ही बैठ गया है, मतलब ऐसा.
पहली चीज तो जो डर बैठा है उसको आप उठा के उससे आप बाहर भी आ सकते हो. डर इज नॉट अ परमानेंट स्टेट ऑफ लाइफ. There are ways out with it, and some we've talked about earlier in the conversation. If they don't work, please reach out. Do reach out to a professional and seek help. Maybe it just requires one conversation or one session of dealing with actually what's the part of you that is stuck in there and move forward from it. Right? Your
Yep.
own internal resources are already there.
Yeah.
It's just gotten crowded and underwhelmed, or rather overwhelmed by the fear. So that. The second is said of how do you balance between the negative and wanting to help. If I know a source is negative, right? It's the same thing as if I know a person talks in a way that I don't potentially align with. How much will I keep engaging with that person? If I keep doing it, then I'm only hurting myself again and again and again, right? Now let's look at the same way. If there are groups on WhatsApp or on Facebook or wherever, where you see that conversations are not contributive, or it's only a certain kind of forwards that are happening that you don't align with. What's keeping you stuck there? Leave it. You have the right to leave an unhealthy situation, right? And in case you can do that in real life, I mean, if you can do that in real life, and it's a good thing to do, then please do that in your virtual life too, your social media life too. I, for example, am hardly active on Facebook. It's not my, I don't feel comfortable being on it for extended periods of time. So I used to find myself sort of getting sucked into the stories that are being shared there. So what I initially did was I limited my time, and I realized that was also not working. So I took off the app from my phone. Now, if I really do want to go on Facebook, I'll potentially open my laptop, go onto Facebook, or even from my phone, open the website and go, which means I'm doing a conscious effort to do that. Similarly, even on maybe even Instagram or WhatsApp or whatever, if you're constantly watching stories that are causing you to feel more anxious or depressed or negative or whatever it is for you, then stop. As simple as that. And go into those groups or those conversations that are contributive. The second being, it could be that the same group has a bit of both. Then when you know that, let's say, ABCD XYZ only sends that sort of forward, don't download them. Na? Change the settings on your WhatsApp that says don't do auto download of photos and videos so that you don't get it. And only watch what you find is relevant or where you see there's a requirement for help and that you can help. Right? So that is a way that you could do. So what is being around us? If COVID was not here, it would still be true. It's an aspect of our life at any given point in time. It's a very human aspect, which is that there's always going to be inputs around us, some of which are in alignment with us, some of which are not. Alignment with where we want to be or how we feel. You consciously align with the one that you want to be, that is contributed to you. That's it. What is our addiction to the bad news and the negativity? That's the question.
Yep. True.
Or the drama that comes with it.
Yeah. So another question that I received was that being at home for such a long time is adding pressure on relationships. People seem to not get...
Harbinder, I'm so sorry. I'm just going to pause you. There's a very interesting question. We talked about children, and there's one in the chat too, where Gurmeet Okay, so Gauri has written that if you're going to touch on children, students, there's a lack of motivation there too. Staying at home could have something to do with it too. Friends of mine are blaming the institution. Okay, and Dashmeet has stopped reading newspapers for over a year. Dashmeet, good thing. That they're all read the good ones. Um, okay, so coming to Gauri's question, lack of motivation. Motivation technically is always internal, right? So if you're not, if okay, there are two things. Motivation is affected by our physiology, is affected by our day-to-day life. Being at home does not mean we don't have a routine. So having a routine is as important as anything else. If it only takes an institution, a school or a college for us to have that, and only that is forcing us to do something, then, well, we were not very motivated to start with, right? It required something else to push us in that direction. And blaming the institution while, and this is for any institution, by the way, blaming the institution while might make us feel good in that moment because, hey, it's somebody else's fault. But the fact is, we are participants in the whole thing, in that whole equation. So even for children who are feeling demotivated or not motivated, if you want to feel motivated, how do you feel motivated? What are some things that have helped you feel motivated earlier? What are some things that you want to look forward to that will help you feel motivated? What is your internal drive, your value system that will move you towards that? Look at those things, and that could help with the motivation. Yeah?
Got it.
Right.
I hope
Back to
Gauri
you,
got
Harvinder. Sorry.
an answer. So, being at home for such long periods of time is kind of adding to the whole pressure on relationship. So, it seems like people are not, or the couples are not getting enough space in their relationships because nobody's going out, nobody's getting time, everybody's with each other, being seen what they are
All the
doing.
time.
And what is it that you suggest can be done to ensure that no negativity comes between such relationships?
Okay, so there's a very nice quote from Wayne Dyer that says that what happens when you squeeze an orange? What comes out is orange juice. It's never apple juice, right? So what's inside is what's going to come out. In pressure situations like this, it's bringing out to the surface more and more issues that could have been dormant. And now they're in your face because you're together all the time. Yeah. Which also means it's a great time for you to actually work on your relationship and look at these issues, address them, not brush them under the carpet, address them to have a healthier relationship. And that working on it does not mean that, you stay in one corner and I stay in another corner and never talk to each other for the next 2 years. That's not going to help either. So if that's the case, if the relationship has to work, first is address consciously what's going on. There are also a lot of cases, there is an increased number of cases, and it's world over, the records show, of domestic violence, of, of actually relationships and divorces rather, increased divorces and relationships not working out. It's true, because it's bringing that stuff. Now, let's come to a resolution of cases where people do want to work on it. First, as a couple, acknowledge that this is happening in our relationship. I notice we're fighting a lot more these days. I notice that both of us, so what is it that we require? And let's actually have that conversation. What do we require? Potentially it could be personal space. It could also potentially be management of equitable distribution of work, or the fact that I'm doing both house and office is stressful, right? Let's first put those things out there and acknowledge them for what it is, and then let's look towards the resolution. There are simple steps too that you can do, because we all have individual lives besides the relationship. No relationship means sitting together all the time, holding hands, and then, with your left hand doing something. Of course not, right? So if I need personal space, you need personal space, how do we ensure that? And small things like, time from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. is mine, and I am not to be disturbed for it. Fantastic. Time from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. is mine, and I'm not to be disturbed for it. That's your room. You lock the room. You do whatever in it. I don't care. Fine. Personal space, right? So even in a confined space, we can all find personal space. Let's look at it this way. We all have once upon a time stayed in a hotel, right? Whether we live there individually, whether we've stayed there on our own or we've stayed with others. If you stayed in a hotel for more than 2 days, you would have made it your personal space. If you can do it in a hotel room, you can do it in your house. It is a house you all live in, right? Find creative ways to find your personal space and communicate. Reactions are not going to help. After a reaction, maybe both of you do need to sit together, maybe with a glass of wine or a glass of water or a kadha, and have a conversation. Yeah.
Okay. Swami, I'm going to come to a very, very important thing. And, it is sad that a lot of people, I mean, a lot of us have been losing our loved ones. There have been a lot of bereavements. Now, typically in normal circumstances, I mean, I'm talking about pre-COVID times, when you would have, when you would face such kind of issues, you would have your friends, family coming over, they're standing by you. I mean, I have not seen in most families that a person who's immediately affected is the one who's making all the arrangement. It's all being done by
Mm.
friends and family around you, and they
Correct.
give you that comfort that, listen, don't worry, we are standing by you. We are now in a situation where there is complete helplessness. uh, People are not there beside you. I mean, I know that somebody called me the other day that he was feeling depressed because he was getting called not for cylinders, not for hospitalization, but he was getting a request that, can I get two or three people to help me bring the body down of my father? Now, it was a very sad situation to be in.
Mm.
Also, the deaths that are happening now are something which are completely sudden, shocking. They were never expected. People who were
Mm.
hale and hearty few days ago are suddenly, vanishing. So my question is, how does one deal with grief? And also, I'm going to
Okay.
add there. I'm going to add there. When I'm talking about grief, there's a lot of anguish. There's a lot of anger.
Yes.
So these are two
Mhm.
questions related coming out of this. One is, how do you deal with grief? Second is, there's a lot of anger that, मेरे टाइम पे कोई भी साथ में नहीं खड़ा था, ठीक है ना?
Mm.
So they're dealing with these two things at the same time. So
Mm.
I want your help in understanding what is it that people can do during these times to deal with their situation.
So first of all, for all of us who have lost loved ones, who, um, it is a difficult situation. It is painful, and I'm really sorry for everybody who's gone through or is going through that loss. Um, and even if it was not COVID, death, expected or unexpected, feels feels like the most painful thing there could be, right? Because the person who is dying is dead. That person is not feeling anything anymore. But us who are left behind, who are feeling all the pain, the bereavement, the, like you said, people there to help, not help, and it comes over time. It comes in waves, and it's not, again, like any other emotion. It's not an on and off thing that I switch it on and switch it off. So for especially now, there is an extreme to it. Like you said earlier, when if there was a death, there are people around you. They're taking care of some things while you're taking care of some things potentially. They're also there to support you after all the things are done. And it's not a process you go through alone. Today, one, the sheer number of cases. Second, the label or the diagnosis requires very quick um, cremation or burial and the completion of the process of the with the body. So it doesn't allow us enough time to process it, and also the fact that it is sudden. And even before that happened, for the, let's assume 10 days before that, you were struggling to keep that person alive or healthy, right? So you were already under stress, and then suddenly this happened, so it feels even more overwhelming. Um, Grief is a process. There are psychologists who have talked about, and there are several theories there who say there are X number of steps to the process. Let's not go there because we don't want to look at a book for it. But let's look at it simply, the fact that you spent an entire life with a person. You're not going to stop missing them immediately. You're also not going to stop feeling the loss immediately. In fact, the loss is always going to be there. It will stop hurting as much. That is the difference. Yeah. How do you deal with it? And I'll come to the anger bit shortly. How do you deal with it? Feel your emotions fully. Your emotion of sadness or loss or hurt or pain is the most authentic emotion in that moment. So, feeling that is the right thing to do, because it is important to feel whatever is the most authentic emotion in that context. If you were laughing in somebody's death, even if it was a post-COVID scenario, that would be out of context, right? And that is not where you go and put a smiley face and a positive whatever, right? That is, in that moment, sadness or at least somberness is the most natural emotion to have. So if as a family member you're feeling that, that is the natural emotion. You'll feel it for a few days and you do need to feel it. Because that is like a wound and you do need to allow that wound to give it space. In due course of time, there will be additional emotions with it, which would probably be missing. It could also be guilt of things that, that got left behind or, you did or did not do. It could also be positive musings of, oh, this is the kind of time we used to spend together. There could also be anger towards others, and now coming to the anger aspect also. There could also be anger towards others or your own self, that maybe I didn't do enough, or, the system, or the situation, or COVID, or God, or whatever, or that person that you went too soon, you told me you're going to live and you went too soon. Whatever that is the most authentic emotion of that time. So please allow yourself to feel that emotion. Grief is a process. Do not interrupt it. After a few weeks, however, if you feel that it's still overwhelming and you have not been able to come out of it, then please reach out to a therapist or a counselor. It is important because they will help you to just navigate it towards a point of peace. I will not call it closure, a point of peace. Okay? And the several other things that got triggered with it, for example, the rage towards somebody on the outside or otherwise, can also be addressed because it's important for you to come to peace. And whatever are the quote-unquote incompletions with that person can also be completed. So, and don't be shy about seeking help. Like earlier this week, I was working with a corporate group where they had lost a senior manager that the team really looked up to, and I bow to that corporate and the HR for being so aware that they organized a session on grief. And it was beautiful for all of them to not only express the pain, but also what they're going to take forward. And we'll do further work with it. Some people will take on one-to-one work also. But that is what's required. It is required. Please don't drink it away. Please don't smoke it away. Please don't, chatter it away. Please vent out. Please do have a catharsis. But please don't go in that same loop of this and that is to be blamed. And please don't keep it inside either. Because if you're keeping it on the inside, it is turning into more pain that will catch up later.
And how do you deal with the anger that nobody stood by my side?
First, accepting that yes, nobody stood by your side, looking at the context of it. Second, yes, nobody stood by my side. Now what? Do I go up to them and say, hey, why didn't you? Or second, can I allow myself to feel that anger? Actually feel it fully, but in my own space, feel it fully. And then go deeper as to what did that make me feel even deeper. Maybe it made me feel uncared for. Maybe it made me feel all alone in the entire world. Feel that fully. And then go deeper. So process the emotion fully till you come to peace with it. The fact is, yes, nobody stood by it. And maybe there is, in due course of time, when you felt your emotions, you'll come to true peace and forgiveness, because you'll be able to contextualize why they didn't. Is it because maybe it was a COVID death and they didn't want to catch it? Is it something else, right? So, or maybe they didn't have the resources, or maybe they felt overwhelmed and scared themselves, they felt frozen, whatever it is. In their worldview, they were doing the best they could. And we cannot take that out of the equation either. But what it made you feel is as real and as contextual. So you can work on what it made you feel and work from there.
Yeah.
And again, further, if the anger stays for a long period of time, please seek help. It's good to let it come to a resolution.
Got it. So I have two more questions, Soumya.
Okay.
One is, I have received this question that I feel uncertain about the future. And this makes me feel anxious because people are talking of third wave. So I'm not sure whether I'm going to be alive, I'm not going to be alive. Is there anything I can do about it? I don't know what the future holds for me. So how does one deal with this kind of an anxiety?
While unfortunately, even the best of the quote-unquote astrologers cannot tell with 100% certainty what's going to happen tomorrow, except that one day eventually all of us will die. That's the only certainty that we have. Will there be a third wave? We don't know. Yet there are calculations that are suggestive of something or the other. So those are calculations. Will I be alive? Potentially, maybe, maybe not, right? Will somebody die of COVID? Not necessarily. You could die of an accident. You could die of something else, and you could die in your sleep. So again, we don't know. There is, and it is the uncertainty or the I don't know that creates the fear and the panic. First thing, let's accept I don't know. You don't know. So yes, there is a lot of uncertainty about what will happen in the future. If that's the case, what do I know right now? And what can I do right now that is in my control? Stay in the present. What in the present can you do that will help you be prepared for the future in the best way possible? This could be with respect to, if we were to contextualize it for COVID, it could be taking care of your health. It could be, now genuinely building up your immunity. It could also be, very, very genuinely, maybe getting a health checkup done after this is done, right? And finding out and potentially working through that. It could also be financial investment. It could also be something as simple as having a will. It's a painful one. If there is a fear that you might die, then maybe have a will. So let's first look at the practical things that you can do. Now let's look at something even better. What can you do in your mindset that can shift it? Because right now you're feeling uncertain, you're feeling fearful of this uncertainty is again going to keep you in that loop and weaken your immune system and cause you to do things that are actually unhealthy, which could even be panic buying. Like right now people are going berserk buying a lot of things for the future, not for the current needs, which are not required, right? So what is it that you do need? Second, look at really address the fear. What are you actually fearful of? Of that, what of it is in your control? And work on that. The bit that's not in your control, accept it. That's not in your control. And the moment any of that stuff comes in your control, work on it. Work on your mental, emotional health. That is very critical at this point in time, because if the uncertainty loop keeps going on, the anxiety keeps going on, then you're constantly going to be in a space of, your immune system getting weak. And, looking for things to sort of make you understand, this could go wrong and that could go wrong and everything like that. So your reactions also with the outside world will be different. So taking care of your emotional mental health at this point in time will be very, very critical, right? And look at the simplest of things. Could it be that I could do affirmations? Could it be that I could do visualizations? Could it be that I could actually focus on gratitude? Gratitude, by the way, is a very strong tool that works very well and helps you to actually stay in a positive frame of mind no matter what's happening. Many of us have actually recovered faster because of being in gratitude. So that's again something to do. In fact, if you did that, if you made that your way of life, that will also potentially help you feel a lot more in control. Now,
Himanshu,
Harvinder, there's also a question. Yes,
yeah, Himanshu is asking a
if you could
question.
just read that.
Yeah, he says that while I and my family recovered at home, but there is also a survivor's guilt, despite us trying whenever and however possible, to
Hmm.
help people who needed desperate help. I mean, you've answered this question, but if you can just touch upon it once more for Himanshu.
Sure, sure. Yes. So, okay. Uh, so survival guilt is of two types. One, you survived and you recovered, but some people did. There is also that I did get COVID, but many people did. And the third is that yes, I'm trying to help a lot of people, but maybe I'm not doing enough. All of these are examples of it. First thing to do, your getting sick is not going to help anybody heal faster. Your surviving is also not going to help anybody recover or stay alive, right? They have nothing to do with each other. Please accept that. In fact, your getting ill could potentially put even more pressure on somebody else. That, oh, now I have another person to look after, right? The second being, forgive yourself. Forgive yourself for maybe not doing all that you thought you could do for everybody, and accept that in that moment, maybe with your health or with those circumstances, you were doing the best that you could. Your staying in guilt is not going to help anyone. Guilt, however, can be a motivating factor for you to look at other ways of contributing to others. Also, Himanshu, have you helped others? Have you contributed to others, even if it is in the form of a conversation? I know that you are an artist. Have you maybe helped others by making something beautiful for them? Did you help maybe a family member who was recovering, and you held their hand when they were feeling panicky, right? Help is not always in one form, and this bit we talked about earlier. Help is in the way you can help a person. There are enough people doing. I mean, okay, there are many people doing many things, and we're grateful for all of that help. This is really community living. Um, if you can't help them with something specific, guide them to who can.
Got it. uh, my last question to you, Soumya, is that, and this is something that I just thought of while you were talking about helplessness and issues about guilt, etc. I think the biggest community that is facing guilt right now, or having a feeling of helplessness, is the
Mm-hmm.
community of health providers, doctors.
Mm-hmm.
They are constrained with lack or no resources.
Mm-hmm.
They are talking of that, had this been a normal time, I could have actually saved this person, but I can't save this person because I don't have the support system, or I don't have the resources. And the feeling of letting a person die even when he could have been saved is a huge guilt for a professional whose job and focus in life is to save lives. So how do doctors, I mean, they may not be able to express this right now, but when you speak with them, I've had the opportunity to speak with a lot of doctors. When I speak to them, you can sense this in their minds. So, how does
Mm-hmm.
a doctor handle himself during this crisis? Because if you see the news of 2 days ago, where the doctors in the ICU just left and went and hid themselves in the cafeteria because they couldn't face the attendants. So
Mm-hmm.
how do you suggest they handle themselves right now?
So I had worked with healthcare providers in another country last year, um, who and that country had a tsunami the way we are having one now, and there was a lot of helplessness there. And I am in touch with several friends of mine who are doctors at present, And even in talking to them, it's like you said, I completely agree. There is apparent helplessness just by the sheer numbers and therefore the overwhelm. And and so the not being able to help everyone, not being able to deal with everyone. Um, let's look at it from one perspective. This is a tsunami, right? This has felt like a tsunami, um, and it is overwhelming. So when in a crisis situation, doctors are taught triage in the very beginning, the red, amber, green, right? Who can be saved, who cannot be saved. And that is their survival mechanism that's taught from the very beginning. And it is, even now they're doing that. As family members, those who have people they're potentially losing or where they're not getting the answers, it feels unfair. It feels, hey, why are you not giving answers to me? Or why are you not responding to my text when I'm asking you about the health of my loved one or whatever, right? But let's also contextualize. They are overwhelmed. Where they looked after maybe 30 people in an ICU, now they're 100 or maybe more in many cases. And more are coming in. And there has been the uncertainty at several points of time of whether there will be resources, whether there's going to be an oxygen, whether there is going to, whether they're going to be able to manage, right? And yes, that does lead to guilt. Yes, that does lead to helplessness. First of all, those who are the doctors and medical health providers in the form of nurses, in the form of all medical staff, and ambulance people and otherwise paramedics, etc. You are doing a job that we can't even fathom. So thank you for this, and really thank you for this. The second, your emotions are as important. At present, because again we are in the survival mode. So in survival mode, we're only focusing on survival. However much we can do, we're going to focus on survival. Theirs and the other people. And by theirs, I mean, let's get through this thing and let's get through this thing. So if you get a 10-minute break, this is the time to rest. Wherever you can, please rest your system so that you are healthy enough to look after the others. Now let's come to the helplessness and the guilt. A lot of this situation is out of our control, and we need to accept that. So you have been doing the best you could with the resources that you've had, limited or unlimited as they have been. And could you have saved everybody? Maybe, maybe not. And in a doctor's life, Harvinder, unfortunately or fortunately, this is a reality that they live with even in a non-COVID and a non-tsunami COVID world, where there are cases that they could have done everything for and the person doesn't survive, and then there's the helplessness. Here, with the sheer number of cases, of course, it's overwhelming. My request to the doctors, when you have the time, please talk to someone. Please seek help. And please express this out so that it gets out of your system and actually comes for a resolution. A resolution and closure is required. After that, you'll have your resources, and I know that you'll continue to support the humanity the way you beautifully have been, even to now and in the future. Right? But yes, if not now, then in the future, and there is the realization that if we do not work on our emotional mental health, and this goes across context of who it is, there's going to be post-traumatic stress. There is going to be impact of that. There are also illnesses related to that could potentially come up, and which is the reason why it's very critical now to take that time to address our emotional mental health. So please connect with somebody, and please do seek resolution. It seems scary because it's an unknown area, but it's really about going within yourself with somebody who does not judge you, who accepts you, who guides you into this journey and leads you to completion. So please do that. And that is most critical now. Please, now is the time.
Awesome. I think, you know what, Soumya, one thing that you and me together we can do when things get eased out, when doctors have the time, is to actually contribute by doing a session specifically for them to help them get out of this the soonest,
You
because
have got my vote. You tell me when to do it. I'll do that.
absolutely we'll wait for things to ease up, and when these guys are available. So guys, if you have any more questions, why don't you just write in the chat box, else we're going to wrap up the session.
Yes.
I'm going to wrap it up with three things that I want to do. I want to share what the key takeaways from the session are, and I'm going to share with you what I have been doing during this time, and also I want to give a message. So if you have any questions, I'll wait for 10 seconds for the questions to pop up. So, Soumya, my key takeaways from our conversation today is that one, it's important for all of us to live a life of gratitude. I mean, while all the things that we see happening around, there is so much more and multiples of that we should be thankful for, because while for one person who's getting ill, there are millions who are not. So I think, that's something that we should be thankful for. And for 90% or 95% of the people who get ill and they become well, I think we should be having gratitude for that particular thing. Second is something very, very important, is to accept and acknowledge IDK, that you don't have an answer for everything. I think that was really, really powerful. And last but not the least was the power of processing your emotion. Let it, process that emotion that you're feeling and let it be, and feel it as deeply as you can. Don't stop it, right?
Absolutely.
Something that I have been doing, and I feel that, all of us are blessed to have time to do that, is all the things that we have always wanted to do, but we did not have the time to do it. Engage yourself in doing that. So whether it is art, painting, music, or just catching up with the TED conversations, do whatever comes to your mind. I mean, God has given you the time to do all those things which you have always complained that you didn't have time to do. So that's what I have been doing, and that's what kept me busy and kept me away from the negativity. Now, one very important message that I want to give is that, vaccinations have started. And while I know that there is a scare of catching, the virus while you're going to the station, please take precautions, but go and get yourself vaccinated. And while we all of us here understand the importance of vaccination, please go and educate people around you. The vegetable vendor, the guy who's delivering milk to your place, the newspaper guy, these are people who are touching your lives every day with essentials, even when the lockdown is there, right? So go and educate them, because unless these people are vaccinated, unless these people are safe, you will never be safe. So if you want to live in a safe society, we have to make everyone safe, not just yourself. So I think that's very, very important. And I really want to stress that go spread the message. Let's make a safer society to live in so that we all can survive. Right? That's what I want to say. Right?
I think that's a fantastic message, Harvinder.
And Soumya, I really want to thank you that despite you are recovering from COVID yourself, I know the kind of
recovered. Now I will call myself recovered.
Yeah, I can see, because I despite all the weakness, etc., for you to take out so much time, I can't thank you enough. So thank you so much for taking our time, and I really appreciate you taking time to answer these questions that were really, really important.
My pleasure. Thank you for organizing this.
Thank you. And thank you everyone who joined us. Thank you.